Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank. Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning, and I am so glad that you've joined us this morning. We have a lot to cover. In the 7 o'clock hour, we're going to be talking with Don Berlew. We look forward to that. Going to find out all about Watkins Glen International, and it's hard to believe, but the upcoming NASCAR weekend on Mother's Day in May. So we'll be talking with Don Berlew in the 7 o'clock hour. First, let's go to viewer comments, and then I have a couple of, quick updates from the last couple shows, and then we're going to get right into Iran. A lot going on with Iran. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Mark. Well, it's not a deal just yet in Iran. They claim a ceasefire for Lebanon was in the deal when it wasn't the deal, and that was with Iran only, so the Strait of Hormuz is still closed. Yes, we are going to be talking about that. Thank you, Mark. First, yesterday we had Sheriff Allard on, and if you missed it, you can find it on our website. You can find it on our YouTube page. Great interview, as always, with the sheriff. Well, right before he came on, I was talking about this piece from the New York Post by Von Golden about top New York Democrats waive off the overdue state budget. As we know, the state budget was due April 1st. They just recently voted on an extender, which gets them through April the 14th. And they're in no rush. We were talking about it. This is right before the sheriff came on the program, but I missed a very important part to this article. So State Senator Michael Giarnis, the number 2 Democrat in the upper chamber, made the comments that this is kind of the delay is built into people's expectations. I think it's built into people's expectations and that lawmakers aren't sweating the delay. I think we've become accustomed to the last several weeks, which is the budget has not been catastrophically late, but it's been a few weeks late, he admitted, just after members quickly gavelled in and out to pass the extender. Now, the part that I missed in this piece, again from the New York Post, is a quote from none other than Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, who will be joining us on tomorrow's program, Fridays with Phil. Phil Palmisano quoted in the New York Post article as, quote, "The longer this process drags on, the harder it becomes for them to plan, budget, and make ends meet." And that is with local governments, that's with school budgets, to craft their budgets. This budget extender keeps the lights on, but it does not provide any direction to the residents we represent in our district. This is exactly why this continued process can't continue the way it has, extender after extender. Though he added that he will ultimately vote in favor of the extender. A number of rank and file members didn't even bother to show up in person for the vote. Clearly, Phil was not one of them. This is the most I don't give a blank budget I've seen in 30 years, said one seasoned lobbyist about the process. Legislative leaders met with Hochul Tuesday morning, according to sources familiar with the talks. Sticking points include the governor's secret proposal to roll back compliance deadlines in the state's climate laws. Giarna said it's been baby steps. Well, basically, congratulations to Phil Palmisano for making the New York Post. That's what I wanted to mention. Hey, since we're talking local, there is a recent study out by the World Atlas, and they take a look at the friendliest towns in New York for retirement. Now, of course, we can make the argument there are no friendly towns in New York for retirement, but I guess if you accept the high taxes, the loss of freedoms, those type of things, if you accept that and say, I want to retire in New York, these are the friendliest New York towns for retirement in our area, in the Finger Lakes. Ithaca. Ithaca is located at the southern end of Cayuga Lake. This unique spot, a progressive city with a small-town feel, is home to two top-level colleges, Cornell University and Ithaca College. We don't need to go through all that. I said, okay, well, and this is from Ithaca Journal. So the headline was Ithaca named among friendliest New York towns. Well, I thought, well, there's got to be others. And looking at the World Atlas, Hammondsport made it. Our friends in Hammondsport, a village within the town of Urbana, pronounced that strange for a second, Urbana, in Steuben County. Hammondsport is located at the southern end of Cayuga Lake. The community was the birthplace of Glenn H. Curtis, a pioneer in aviation and flight enthusiast. May want to visit a museum in his name that looks at the advancement of aviation. Hammondsport is also home to some world-class wineries and breweries along the Cayuga Lake Wine Trail. And they go through and name some. And finally, and how appropriate, with Don Berlew on in the program a little bit later on, Watkins Glen. The Schuyler County town is a historic community surrounded by stunning natural beauty, home to Watkins Glen State Park and its spectacular gorges and hiking trails. Watkins Glen is at the southern end of Seneca Lake. The quaint community is also known for its racetrack, Watkins Glen International, which draws racing enthusiasts and also wine connoisseurs for a midsummer wine festival. I don't think that's happening anymore, is it? Watkins Glen also has a vibrant and walkable downtown area with many stores, restaurants, and shops. There are also several smaller parks downtown, including Seneca Harbor Park, a lakeside park that features City Pier and its iconic Pier House. According to the World Atlas, its draw for retirees include a serene lakeside setting, walkable downtown, and proximity to the Seneca Lake Wine Trail, the largest wine trail within New York with dozens of wineries. There you go. All right, kicking off with some good news. Hey, do you remember... No, wait a second. Do you remember when Cory Booker gave his... It wasn't a filibuster. It was just a lengthy speech. It was 25 hours and 5 minutes. Well, he wrote a book about it called Stand, because Cory Booker is clearly trying to make moves to be a presidential candidate, and he has probably since the beginning of his career. Well, we learn, as he is promoting his book, that his wife claims she was worried that her spouse would suffer an injury or, at worst, die during his marathon Senate speech last year. Am I missing something about this speech? I mean, granted, 25 hours and 5 minutes without being able to take a break. Again, it broke a record, but it wasn't really a filibuster. That's what's strange. This happened, it's hard to believe, a year ago. Booker's wife, Alexis Booker, whom he wed last year, posted a video to TikTok this week, walking through the worries she had as Booker delivered his marathon speech. She said she was afraid he would actually die. Quote, if it's not super safe to stand for 25 hours, like your body kind of just like breaks down. And if you fall over, you could hit your head. So those are the things that were going through our head. Like, yes, I wanted him to break the record, but I also wanted him to not die or like get injured. She was extremely worried he would become dehydrated or woozy from not eating for a day. Quote, he wasn't going to eat for a really long period of time. Just being dehydrated alone was worrying to me. He explained that she and Booker's mother could not be there, so she would call his mother because everybody was just nervous. At that point, I was living in LA. I was preparing to move to live with Cory. And so I didn't want to bother him, but I would send cute messages or I made a cartoon with my face on it, noting she made a comic and had Booker's team print it out and give it to him. Booker largely used his speech to espouse his anti-Trump views. Needless to say, it for whatever reason, it got the attention of the mainstream media and other Democrats. The senator later cashed in on the stunt with his new book titled Stand. Quote, now is not the time to surrender to cynicism or abandon our most noble ideas. Now is the time to defiantly declare that our ancestors before us, I too stand for America. So Cory Booker, and many mock him for that speech he gave, not that speech, well, they mock him for that too, but when he declared himself Spartacus, if you recall that, he's trying very hard to get that one, historic talking point that he can put on shirts and bumper stickers and sell as he starts his campaign for president. He, like Gavin Newsom, it's no secret they want to run for president. But again, here we are a year later, a little over a year later. Did you think we'd still be talking about that historic, legendary speech where Cory Booker could have died or suffered injury? I don't know. Thought I'd mention it. Yeah. How are we doing on time? Good. Another breaking story. Pam Bondi defied the House subpoena over the Epstein files yesterday. Lawmakers in both parties are frustrated with how the Justice Department handled the Epstein files and see Bondi's testimony as key to getting answers in their months-long investigation into Epstein. Bondi, who was ousted from her post earlier this month, previously told reporters she will follow the law in responding to a subpoena from the panel. The Department of Justice has stated Pam Bondi will not appear on April 14th for a deposition since she is no longer Attorney General and was subpoenaed in her capacity as Attorney General, a committee spokesperson said. The panel will reach out to Bondi's personal attorney to discuss the next steps. So that was an update from yesterday. I have a quick piece on Artemis, too, and then we're going to jump right into some international affairs, not just Iran, but there is a lot to cover. So keep your waves, keep your comments coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
When you spend 100 years building chainsaws, you get really good at building chainsaws. So when Steel built the mower, we built the chainsaw mowers. New blade, same bloodline.
Can you help me?
Mom, Dad, we're going out.
Thank you.
Oh, look, they're playing chess.
What you got there?
Will you help my mom?
She's real sick, huh? Hey, crew, I'll give the first move to anyone who signs up to be an organ donor. How do you do it?
Easy. Just go to organdonor.gov.
You heard him, organdonor.gov.
More donors means more hope. Sign up at organdonor.gov.
Hello there, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We get to enjoy some sunshine for our Thursday. South-southeast wind around 10 miles per hour, pushing us about 5 or so degrees on the warm side of average. Then we'll stay mild tonight with lows in upper 30s, south to mid-40s looking west. By Friday, highs are closer to the 70-degree mark, mid and upper 60s with some showery potential. Pretty dry over the weekend, briefly cooler, but warm at the start of next.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. We've been talking about Artemis II, giving you some updates on that. I believe they are set to land tomorrow. Well, Senator Rick Scott says this week Americans and people around the world have been awed and inspired by an incredible journey that began in the state of Florida. After a successful launch at Cape Canaveral, NASA has sent human beings around the moon for the first time in 54 years. Artemis II has now completed its lunar flyby, traveling more than 250 1,000 miles from Earth and venturing farther into space than any crewed mission in modern history. As exciting as this mission is, it's only the beginning of America's new future on the final frontier, and none of it would be possible without sound leadership. Under the leadership of President Trump and NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman, Artemis 2 is expected to launch next year, entering low Earth orbit to rendezvous with one or both commercial lunar landers before landing Americans on the moon in the year 2028. While this achievement belongs first and foremost to our heroic astronauts, NASA's brilliant workforce, and everyone who has worked so hard on Florida's Space Coast, it is also the result of a long-needed shift in leadership priorities. For decades, NASA struggled with inconsistent direction. After Barack Obama canceled the Constellation program, the agency drifted, and Florida's Space Coast began to fall by the wayside. Back then, NASA funded funding reached an all-time low as a percentage of the federal budget. Jobs started to disappear in Florida. That's why during my 8 years as governor, we worked to invest more than $230 million in spaceport projects to help the Space Coast and create thousands of high-paying aerospace jobs that included working with the private sector, helping set the stage for Florida as the site of the Blue Origin launch site, and the transfer of the shuttle landing facility from NASA to Space Florida. Then things got back on track during President Trump's first term by reestablishing the National Space Council, launching the Moon to Mars program, and setting a clear objective to return Americans to the moon. He gave NASA back its focus and purpose. That progress once again stalled under Joe Biden. While Artemis was allowed to continue, the Biden administration overloaded NASA with political mandates that had little to do with space exploration and everything to do with appeasing the radical left. Climate activism and DEI initiatives took over, draining resources and distracting from its mission. In its first 100 days, Biden installed a diversity advisor tasked with embedding equity into every corner of the agency. NASA was also pulled into the White House Climate Task Force and directed to expand its role in climate policy. The administration created a senior climate advisor position, further entrenching political priorities inside what should be a mission-driven space agency. Reports show that at least $13 million was spent on DEI programs between 2021 and 2024, funding consultants, internal training, and identity-based initiatives despite concerns about mission readiness. Americans were horrified when NASA astronauts Barry Butch Wilmore and Sunita Suni Williams were left stranded in space for months due to ongoing failures with the Boeing Starliner. What should have been a routine mission turned into a national embarrassment. It underscores what happened when excellence takes a back seat to politics. And this, again, if you're just joining us, Senator Rick Scott, and I thought it's a fantastic piece. And if you recall, it was reported through anonymous sources that those two astronauts could have been saved by Elon Musk, but the Biden administration at the time did not want the good publicity for Elon Musk because the election was going on. And of course, Elon Musk had saddled up to Trump. So they let those two astronauts suffer in space because they did not want the help of Elon Musk. But I'll continue. At the same time, ideology began creeping into scientific funding. Researchers warned that grant applicants were expected to demonstrate alignment with DEI principles to compete for funding. This shift was openly embraced at the highest levels. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson repeatedly declared that NASA was in the climate propaganda business instead of the space business, even stating publicly that, quote, NASA is a climate agency, end quote, in official communications. Instead of inspiring children to explore the universe, NASA used American tax dollars to frighten them with hysterical predictions of a climate change nightmare. With China aggressively advancing its own space program, the U.S. cannot afford politicized mission creep. That direction is now changing under the leadership of President Trump. NASA's focus has been clear. Execute the Artemis program, strengthen commercial partnerships, and ensure America wins the second space race. Congress should follow suit and do everything within our power to make sure NASA's space exploration mission cannot be hijacked by future Democratic administrations that want to use it for woke political propaganda. That's why Congress needs to take up and pass my dismantled DEI Act to codify President Trump's executive actions terminating DEI programs and initiatives, preventing future administrations from reinstating similar Biden-era DEI policies. This will ensure that NASA and the rest of our federal government remain focused on mission and merit. As Artemis 3 approaches, the stakes could not be higher. The United States can lead a new space age or fall behind because of distractions and misplaced priorities. Artemis 2 has opened the door to a golden age of space exploration. We in Washington must make sure that doors stay open for future generations. I thought that was a great piece by Senator Rick Scott and kind of putting the success of Artemis in perspective and what we dealt with under the Biden administration. I thought you'd enjoy that as well. Okay, so yesterday, did you see this report? J.D. Vance was asked about it. There was a report that came out that the Pentagon threatened the Vatican with military force. Now, it was the Free Press that detailed the rocky relationship between Trump and Pope Leo. We know Pope Leo is coming on directly confronting, if you will, President Trump. Well, according to the report, the Pentagon invited the Holy See ambassador to the U.S., Cardinal Christopher Pierre, for a meeting in response to a recent speech by the Pope. During the meeting, U.S. officials reportedly complained about the speech and took exception to Pope Leo's indirect shots at the president. One of those officials, the report continued, even referenced, I'm not going to probably be able to pronounce this right, but I'm going to try, referenced the Avignon papacy of the 14th century, a period largely defined by the French crown imposing its will to influence the Catholic Church. While speaking to the media, Vance said, okay, I've met him. Sorry, I didn't remember his name. I've never seen this reporting. I'd like to actually talk to Cardinal Christopher Pierre and, frankly, to our people to figure out what exactly happened. I think it's always a bad idea to offer an opinion on stories that are unconfirmed and uncorroborated, so I'm not going to do that. Well, independent reporter Christopher Hale later added that the Vatican viewed the mention of the Avignon papacy as a threat. Okay. This is getting weird. Now it's being reported that Pope Leo, and now this is coming from Mediaite. Mediaite is a far left outlet. How about this headline? Pope Leo reportedly unlikely to visit U.S. after train wreck Trump administration meeting. So after that meeting, it sounds as if the Pope will not visit the U.S. until after Trump's term. Okay, so there's a couple updates. We've been updating on the Pope a lot lately. Stay with us. When we come back, it's time to talk about Iran and international issues. A lot of waves coming in this last segment. Keep them coming in. Keep your comments coming in as well. As I said, we're going to be talking with Don Berlew in today's broadcast. And on tomorrow's broadcast, we're going to be talking with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. So you can get your questions in for both. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Discover how the right mattress can transform your day. At Raymore & Flanigan, we carry brands built for real rest, including the luxurious new King Coil mattresses by Drew and Jonathan Home, and the unparalleled value of our new line Sleep by Raymore & Flanigan. Ready to feel the difference? Visit a sleep center to take a free comfort test. From plush to firm and everything in between, we'll help you find your perfect match. Sleep better, feel better, live better. At Raymore & Flanigan.
World Youth Clubs provides professional and technical assistance to all our affiliate clubs all around the world. We already have 44 countries that are behind us providing safe spaces for kids, but there are 160 other countries we'd like to reach out to. Yeah. Right, Rod? Exactly. We need you to help fund the World Youth Clubs and make their dream come true.
Yeah, hello. I'm really not sure if this is what you all do, but I really don't have anywhere else to turn.
Hi. I don't even know why I'm calling right now. I'm sorry. My thoughts are going a mile a minute.
My kids are out of state. My buddies from the Army are all gone now. I'm really alone.
I left the service last year. My mom just passed away a few months ago. I miss so much time with her. I keep getting calls about the bills, and I'm trying to get a job, but I feel so stuck.
Okay, ma'am. I'm glad you called.
Okay, sir. Let's stay on the line and walk through some things.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer: I used to be proud that the Pope was the first American to be elected for the position, but given his political views, I think he stinks. Okay, thank you very much. All right, so it is learned late last night, the federal government plans to automatically register eligible men for the military draft beginning this December. The Selective Service System, the government agency that maintains the database of draft-eligible Americans, submitted the automatic registration rule change to the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs on March the 30th. Congress approved automatic registration for the draft last December as part of the 2026 National Defense Authorization Act, must-pass legislation that authorizes funding for military personnel and operations. The agency notes on its website the statutory change transfers responsibility for registration from individual men to SSS through integration with federal data sources. SSS will implement the change by December of 2026, resulting in a streamlined registration process and corresponding workforce realignment. Under federal law, most males between 18 and 25 years old are already required to register with the Selective Service System in case of a military draft if it is authorized. Men are expected to self-register within 30 days of their 18th birthday, but the agency accepts late registrations until the age of 26. Wow. Failing to register with the Selective Service System is a felony. Non-registrants face a fine of up to $250,000 or 5 years imprisonment and could also be denied student loans, government jobs, including federal, state, and local, and U.S. citizenship if they are immigrants. Currently, 46 states and territories have laws in place to automatically register eligible men when they apply for driver's licenses or IDs, according to the Selective Service System. In 2024, the Selective Service System reported to Congress that registration rates declined in recent years, dropping from 84% of eligible men in 2023 to 81%. Representative Chrissy Houlihan, Democrat from Pennsylvania, who sponsored automatic draft registration language in the 2026 Defense Policy Bill, argued that it would save taxpayers money. This will also allow us to rededicate resources, basically that means money, towards readiness and towards mobilization, rather than towards education and advertising campaigns driven to register people. The U.S. has not had a draft since the Vietnam War, but the Iran conflict has fueled concerns that one could take place. Carolyn Levitt saying yesterday, it's not part of the current plan right now, meaning the possibility of a draft. However, the president wisely keeps his options on the table. Now, early this morning, it was actually published around 4 o'clock this morning, Iran wildly accused the U.S. of breaking the 2-week ceasefire as Israel launched its largest ever blitz on Tehran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. Rajan Razi, one of Tehran's most senior officials, said Washington would be responsible for the truce collapsing before lashing out at Israel, which he branded, quote, the Zionist enemy, end quote. The responsibility for the collapse of the ceasefire lies with America, which either does not want to or cannot leash its rabid dog, said the ex-commander-in-chief of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. Violations of the ceasefire by America will also not be tolerated. Iran's parliamentary speaker, Mohammad Bagher Ghalib, claimed 3 elements of Tehran's 10-point plan had already been breached. He cited the Israeli onslaught in Lebanon, a drone entering Iranian airspace, and Tehran being blocked from enriching uranium. Now, the very workable basis on which to negotiate has been openly and clearly violated even before the negotiations began, he wrote. In such a situation, a bilateral ceasefire or negotiations is unreasonable. Meanwhile, President Trump said yesterday, or I should say threatened yesterday, bigger and better and stronger military response if Iran doesn't comply with the deal. This was in a late night Truth Social post, so you may have missed it. It came in around midnight last night saying all U.S. ships, aircraft, and military personnel with additional ammunition, weaponry, and anything else that is appropriate and necessary for the lethal prosecution and destruction of an already substantially degraded enemy will remain in place in and around Iran until such time as the real agreement reached is fully complied with. If for any reason it is not, which is highly unlikely, then the shooting starts, he warned, noting that it would be bigger and better and stronger than anyone has ever seen before. Trump asserted it was agreed a long time ago, and despite all of the fake rhetoric to the contrary, no nuclear weapons, and the Strait of Hormuz will be open and safe. In the meantime, our great military is loaded up and resting, looking forward, actually, to its next conquest. America is back. Now, it is being reported that Vance will lead a U.S. delegation in talks with Iran. That's expected to take place on Saturday. We'll tell you a little bit more about that here in just a moment. Oh, how nice is this? Listen to this. Nice comment here. Annie, age 8, is watching Frankly Speaking with Grandpa Peter and sends a wave and a heart. I wish I could count hearts, but a wave and a heart goes out to you as well. Enjoy. I know it's a little wonky, some of the topics, but I hope Annie enjoys it. How do I segue back into Iran with that? What a nice comment. I appreciate that. We do have a lot here about Iran this morning. A couple of New York State updates as well. Just without getting into kind of the nitty-gritty of it right now, but I think it's important to report, if you haven't heard already, Bruce Blakeman is suing to get that matching funding. That doesn't come as a surprise, but that process has begun. As the matching funding, the whole reason the Democrats put it into place, they kind of negated that with not allowing Blakeman to receive that matching funding, saying that he didn't fill out the proper paperwork that did not exist at the time of his filing. So by a 4-3 vote, 4 Democrats, 3 Republicans on that committee, they decided not to let him have the matching funding because apparently, and I'm kind of surprised by this, but the only takeaway you could have is that Governor Hochul must be more scared of Bruce Blakeman than we expected at the jump. So kind of interesting there. All right, before we go to break, Trump warns that U.S. forces will stay near Iran until the lasting deal is secured. So that was big yesterday in his, late last night, early this morning in his tweet, that they will stay prepared for, quote, the shooting to start. It is being reported, and this is what's interesting, their new supreme leader, Mojabi Khamenei, we had a report yesterday or 2 days ago on the program that they believe he's in grave, not danger, health, that he maybe could even be in a coma, has not healed since he was involved in, because he was in that building but had went for a walk when that building was destroyed with Ayatollah Khamenei and about 40 different Iranian leaders. So, again, he is yet to be seen. Now, though, it is being reported that Iran's ceasefire with the U.S. reportedly turned on a dramatic final-hour intervention from Mojabi Khamenei, the country's still unseen new supreme leader, whom sources said gave negotiators the green light to move towards a deal with President Trump's deadline and the threat of a much broader U.S. bombardment. U.S. and Israeli officials learned Monday that Mojabi had, for the first time since the conflict began, instructed negotiators to move toward an agreement, according to Axios. So take it with a grain of salt. Axios, kind of a far-left organization. But they cited Israeli, regional, and other sources familiar with the talks. Without his green light, there wouldn't have been a deal, one source said to the outlet, which said the approval was viewed by multiple sources as a breakthrough. The report described a volatile final stretch in which Trump publicly warned that a whole civilization will die tonight, even as diplomacy accelerated behind the scenes, to avert a far wider escalation. According to the outlet, U.S. forces in the Middle East and Pentagon officials spent those closing hours preparing for a massive bombing campaign on Iranian infrastructure while uncertainty persists over Trump's ultimate decision. At the same time, negotiations were described as chaotic, with Pakistani mediators relaying proposals between U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff, who on Monday blasted Iran's initial 10-point counterproposal as a disaster and catastrophe, and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, as Egypt and Turkey work to narrow remaining gaps. So this is now being reported by Axios. So we've had, I think it was the Times of London, I think is where it was reported that he was in very bad health, that he was basically on his deathbed. Now it's being reported that he did give the green light to start the negotiations and the ceasefire. That's kind of where we are at this morning. Some confusion, but worth mentioning. Trump is also mulling punishing NATO. We're going to talk about that when we come back. So again, coming up in a little bit, Don Berlew. Tomorrow's program, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. So get your questions in. See some comments, see some waves coming in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Kyle just made a decision that would change his whole world.
Hey, you're sober? You drive.
Kyle just made a decision that would change his whole world. Drive sober or get pulled over.
We are the keepers of the wild, America's original and most invested conservationists. For more than 80 years, we've been committed to conserving wildlife and the natural landscapes that define our nation. From rugged alpine ridgelines to peaceful tall grass prairies, we've supported the conservation of more than 36 million acres of American wildlands. Our funding has led to cleaner water, fresher air, and improved wildlife habitat. From abundant fish and waterfowl populations to robust deer and elk herds, nothing is more important than maintaining wild spaces for adventurers to explore and wildlife to thrive. We are America's hunters and target shooters, stewards of the American outdoors.
Hello there, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We get to enjoy some sunshine for our Thursday. South-southeast wind around 10 miles per hour, pushing us about 5 or so degrees on the warm side of average. Then we'll stay mild tonight with lows in upper 30s, south to mid 40s looking west. By Friday, highs are closer to the 70-degree mark, mid and upper 60s with some showery potential. Pretty dry over the weekend, briefly cooler, but warm at the start of next week.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. A couple of viewer comments. Again, we thank Ann for tuning in with her grandpa. Thanks for watching. The pressure's on now. We got to do our best job. Comment from a viewer. The men-only registration, this is for the draft, is sexist and discriminatory in view of the fact that men, but not women, can be denied programs that all women will have access to, but not men unless they register, regardless of whether or not they are conscientious objectors or for any other reason. To make this fair and equitable, women should also be required to register. Okay, a hot take there, as people say. What are your thoughts on that viewer's comments? Okay, Trump is mulling punishing NATO, well, the NATO countries that didn't assist in the Iran war, according to a report. Under the proposed plan, the Trump administration would pull U.S. troops out of NATO countries that were unhelpful with Operation Epic Fury. That's according to the Wall Street Journal, who cited Trump administration officials, anonymous sources. The plan is one of several being considered by the White House to punish members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, according to the outlet. Trump has recently threatened to reassess U.S. membership in NATO over the alliance's lack of assistance with the Iran war and reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Trump took to Truth Social last night for a lot of different reasons, it looks like, but said NATO wasn't there when we needed them. This is all caps, by the way. NATO wasn't there when we needed them, and they won't be there if we need them again. Remember Greenland, that big, poorly run piece of ice? President Donald J. Trump. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte met with Trump at the White House yesterday amid the tensions. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Some 84,000 U.S. troops are stationed across Europe in U.S. bases that boost local economies, serve as a hub for global U.S. military operations, and deter Russian aggression, according to the Journal. The plan under consideration could see a U.S. base shuttered in Spain or Germany, according to officials. Spain closed its airspace to U.S. warplanes involved in the Iran operation. Meanwhile, German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier described the Iran war as a disastrous mistake and accused the U.S. of violating international law. European nations that could benefit from additional U.S. troops, which would be repositioned from the countries that they're being pulled out of, include Poland, Romania, Lithuania, and Greece, the official said. Those nations are viewed by the Trump administration as having been supportive of the war efforts. Romania, for example, allowed the U.S. Air Force to use its bases for Iran missions. Ahead of the Trump-Rutte meeting, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt told reporters the idea of the U.S. withdrawing from the alliance had been talked about, saying, quote, "It's something the president has discussed, and I think it's something that the president will be discussing in a couple of hours with the Secretary General. They were tested," meaning about NATO, "they were tested and they failed." She called it quite sad that NATO turned their backs on the American people over the course of the last 6 weeks when it's the American people who have been funding their defense. A NATO spokesperson said Trump and Rutte had a frank discussion on a range of issues related to our shared security, including in the context of Iran. The Secretary General underscored the importance of allies continuing to step up to deliver a stronger, fairer alliance. So they met together. Trump, Mark Rutte, I think, was Rubio there? Yeah, Rubio was there. Trump repeatedly has threatened a withdrawal, as we had mentioned, despite a good relationship with the head of NATO, who once called him daddy of the alliance. Trump has said that he views NATO as a one-way street. So they re-examining their alliance after Iran. Not a lot of information coming out of that meeting. Now, on CNN's The Lead, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said that some NATO members did fail their tests during the war in Iran, but a large majority of European nations lived up to their commitments. Jake Tapper said, "Do you agree that NATO countries were tested and failed?" As to Carolyn Leavitt, and I think Carolyn Leavitt at that point was quoting Trump. So Mark Rutte said some of them, yes, but a large majority of European countries, and that's what we discussed today, have done what they promised before in a case like this, because they know that when it comes to NATO, it's there to protect the United States because the U.S. needs a secure Atlantic and a secure Arctic and a secure Europe to stay safe here in the U.S. mainland. But it's also there to make sure that, of course, Europe is safe, and it'd be this platform or power projection for the United States. So what the U.S. did with Iran, they could do because so many European countries lived up to those commitments. Not all of them. And I totally understand his disappointment about that. But it is, therefore, a nuanced picture. It's not just saying it is black or white. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that. I know we've had this conversation numerous times, but your thoughts after what we've seen with Iran, should we stay in NATO? What would your takeaways be from really the responsibilities of what NATO is supposed to do and what they actually did? It seems as if Rutte is trying to present a message of, well, yes, some did fail, trying to kind of maybe, not appease is not the right word, but to concede to Trump's point. Now, when we talk about, how am I doing on time? Yeah. So we talk about the end, would you say it's the end of the ceasefire? It kind of looks at the Strait of Hormuz is closed. Some ships went through early in the day. Israel attacked Lebanon. I saw a report this morning that Israel has agreed not to attack Lebanon quite as forcefully. But because of that, Iran shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Vance said, J.D. Vance, of course, told reporters Wednesday that Lebanon was never part of the ceasefire with Iran, and that it would be dumb of Iran to let negotiations disintegrate over Israel's strike on Lebanon. Vance said, I actually think, and there's a lot of bad faith negotiation and a lot of bad faith, propaganda going on. I think this comes from a legitimate misunderstanding. I think the Iranians thought that the ceasefire included Lebanon, and it just didn't. We never made that promise. We never indicated that that was going to be the case. What we said is that the ceasefire would be focused on Iran, and the ceasefire would be focused on America's allies, both Israel and the Gulf Arab states. He understands that has offered, frankly, to check themselves a little bit in Lebanon because they want to, meaning Israel, they need to check themselves a little bit in Lebanon because they want to make sure that our negotiations are successful, and that's not because that is a part of the ceasefire. I think that's the Israelis trying to set us up for success and, well, of course, see how that unfolds in the next few days. But look, if Iran wants to let this negotiation fall apart in a conflict where they were getting hammered over Lebanon, which has nothing to do with them, and which the United States never once said was part of the ceasefire, that's ultimately their choice. We think that would be dumb, but that's their choice. So he says that the Iran negotiations are being done in good faith, but mindful. Where's the exact quote? Vance reflected that he had learned a lot about the Iranian system and a lot about the way the Iranians negotiate over the course of the talk so far, and explained that there were several competing factions within Iranian society, and that while the U.S. has been speaking to what seemed to be the most powerful, the Iranian foreign minister, others were dead set against peace with America. Just in the response we've seen in the various segments of Iran, you have had on one hand people who have responded very favorably. The foreign minister who said, we agree to the United States terms, we'll do a ceasefire, we'll do a negotiation, we'll open the Strait of Hormuz, we'll see if we can come to more agreement down the road. Some of the people have responded favorably and have said the right things. And then you have some people on social media within the system who are basically lying about what we have accomplished militarily. They're lying about the nature of the agreement. They're lying about the nature of the ceasefire. So you have, even within their system, and this is why I say this is a fragile truce, you have people who clearly want to come to the negotiation table and work with us to find a good deal. And then you have people who are lying about even the fragile truce that we have already struck. And that's the interesting thing about this system. Ultimately, it's up to the Iranians how to negotiate. I hope they make the right decision. Now, Vance is going to lead the team to Pakistan. There's some concerns here about safety, but Trump is sending a team led by Vice President J.D. Vance to Pakistan to negotiate an end to the U.S.-Israeli war. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, man, he's a busy guy too, isn't he? And the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, also will participate in the weekend talks in Islamabad. Carolyn Levitt said yesterday the first round of talks will take place on Saturday morning local time. Vice President Vance has played a very significant and a key role in this since the very beginning. Of course, he's the president's right-hand man. He's been involved in all of these discussions, and as I just announced, he'll be leading this new phase of negotiations in Islamabad later this week. We'll have Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner. Trump said yesterday, JD, maybe JD, I don't know. There's a question of safety and security, he said earlier in the day. Trump said that in-person talks would happen very soon. Actually, it's going to take place very soon. So that is to take place this Saturday. It's kind of a back and forth, as I mentioned, whether J.D. Vance will be attending the meeting only due to security reasons, which makes sense. Now we get into the nitty-gritty. When we return, we're going to talk about the so-called political pundits, the talking heads, the politicians, what they are saying. We had yesterday, and some media response, but yesterday we talked extensively about the media's response and how they all sounded almost exactly the same. That Democrats are calling for the use of 25th Amendment, and now some Republicans are. That's bipartisan. Well, they named the same three supposed Republicans, one being Marjorie Taylor Greene, defining the term useful idiot, and I just use that, again, not as a name-calling exercise, but because that's what happens when you are quoted by the people that hate you to go against your party and go against leadership in your party. We're going to talk a little bit about what we're learning from media, talking heads in general, some Republicans too, good things, bad things, all of it, and in between. Keep your comments, keep your waves coming in. We will be right back after this. Stay with us.
Our residents, this is something they love. They put themselves out there doing the show, walking the runway, walking the risers. Every penny we take in on our tickets, on our raffles, sponsorship tables, all goes to Mount House. We sold out in 2 weeks.
Small businesses are the heart of America. Like you, these entrepreneurs started out with a dream and the drive to build a better life. If you have a small business idea to grow or challenge to face, you don't have to go it alone. Since 1964, SCORE has helped millions of entrepreneurs build their businesses. Today, they are the nation's largest nonprofit source of expert mentoring, resources, and education. Whether you're starting out, building back, or have worked at it for years, SCORE will match you with specialized mentors. Our thousands of volunteers provide the guidance and connections you need for free. Your success is waiting. SCORE is ready to help. Find a mentor today at SCORE.org.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by, excuse me, hold on, I'm going to cough. Let's try that again. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Some comments from viewers. Thank you for the piece about Cory Booker. Starting the morning with a good laugh is a great idea. Well done. Thank you very much. Yes, Cory Booker's wife was fearful that he could die and be seriously injured from his floor speech. Though record-breaking, not a filibuster, record-breaking speech for 25 hours, and I can't remember how many minutes now, that he could die. Okay. Cory Booker, we knew, had an ego on him. Apparently his wife shares that same belief that he walks on water. We've seen it from his Spartacus moment. Yeah. Has anybody pre-ordered their book? Or maybe it's out. I don't know. Stand. Even called Stand. So funny. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning to you. I believe that Trump is right about NATO. Just like everything else, it is the same as it used to be. Peace-loving nations don't need to belong to a club. They just need to do the right thing as the needs arise. Thank you very much. Hold on. Excuse me. I don't mean to cough right in the mic. I don't have a cough button. So Democrats are starting to use the I word again, as if there's some type of shock in saying impeachment. When they say again, do they mean since day one? Didn't Al Green put in articles of impeachment like the first week of Trump's administration? They act as if they've been sitting on this for years, and boy, they don't want to call for Trump's impeachment, but their hand has been forced. That is what that bias headline means. Democrats are using the I word again. They've been using it since the beginning of this term, even before he was sworn in. For months, Democrats have tamped down talks of impeachment to avoid casting Trump as a martyr ahead of the midterms. They have? No kidding. Trump not being on the ballot was helpful for Democrats hoping to retake the House, and making the elections about the president would not work in their favor, the thinking went. Nearly 24 Democrats in the House voted to derail an impeachment push by Al Green in December. But the dam broke yesterday. Finally, they couldn't take it any longer. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying this is a threat of genocide and merits removal from office. The president's mental faculties are collapsing, cannot be trusted. To every individual in the president's chain of command, you have a duty to refuse illegal orders. That includes carrying out this threat, AOC said at the time. I don't want to go through each of these. It's the same. Lisa Murkowski was one. Thomas Massey. I don't know. Not all Democrats were unified in a call to oust Trump. House Democrat leadership demanded Republicans call the House back to Washington to stop Trump from further bombing Iran, but stopped short of supporting impeachment. Both chambers in recess and scheduled to return next week. Yes, they're in recess. They're on break as there is still a partial government shutdown. I don't want to go through all this. But now, after all that time of just really holding themselves back, The dam broke yesterday, and the calls for impeachment have begun. We got a blast from the past with a quote from Ralph Nader, too, when we return. Stay with us. Keep those last-second comments coming in for hour number 1. We'll be right back after this.
This year, WYDC is bringing you 25 New York Mets games free over the air this spring and summer. No fees and no subscription services. Tune into WJKP 48.2 to watch the New York Mets this MLB season. Let's go Mets!
Accident. If you're looking for an honest, dependable, trustworthy auto repair shop, bring it to Nappy's. Or if it's undrivable, have it towed right to us. Commit to Nappy's, family owned for 3 generations.
Thank you for your business.
Hot tubs. With Easter coming, what better way to make every day better than with a Hesselson's hot tub? During these uncertain, stressful times, what better way to relieve tension and relax those achy muscles? During Easter week, free chemicals and free steps, and the new and innovative energy-efficient smart tub and hydraulic lift systems are just half price. Plus, huge, unprecedented discounts on 2025 models as factory reps will be on hand. Hesselson's Easter week hot tub sale is going on now through Saturday at 5 p.m. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Hello there, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We get to enjoy some sunshine for our Thursday. South-southeast wind around 10 miles per hour, pushing us about 5 or so degrees on the warm side of average. Then we'll stay mild tonight with lows in upper 30s, south to mid-40s looking west. By Friday, highs are closer to the 70-degree mark, mid and upper 60s with some showery potential. Pretty dry over the weekend, briefly cooler, but warm at the start.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Getting comments about Cory Booker. I've got to say, Cory Booker, Jasmine Crockett, others. There's a couple people, if I'm being completely honest, and why wouldn't I be? If I know that if I bring him up, we're probably going to get a good reaction. Cory Booker is quite entertaining to watch. I think he might have Obama training videos where he slowly looks side to side and tries to talk slowly and stately. Yeah, he has that cadence. He tries to do that cadence that Obama has as well. That's an interesting point. Ralph Nader, remember that? Ralph Nader ran how many times for president? Of course, we could go through his whole history. I don't think we need to. 4-time failed presidential candidate Ralph Nader, who ran twice as the Green Party nominee and twice as an independent, called on former President George W. Bush and Barack Obama to help lead an impeachment drive against President Trump. Keep in mind, Ralph Nader is the same person who had previously argued that both George W. Bush and Barack Obama themselves should be impeached and branded their conduct war crimes. Opening free speech for people's... What is it? I don't want to go through this. Nader said yesterday, I think, though, the most shocking silence of all is not just the enlightened, very rich in the academic world, again, with few exceptions, but the shocking... Wait a minute. The shocking silence about impeaching Trump, there's a shocking silence from the academic world? That's what Ralph Nader's argument is. I think the most shocking silence of all is not just the enlightened, very rich in the academic world, again, with few exceptions. So it's not just them. Wow. But the shocking silence of our ex-presidents, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, and even George Bush, who despises the destruction of the AIDS program in Africa by Donald Trump. In their luxurious retirements, they have been constantly battered by Trump publicly with almost no rebuttal or challenge. Has there ever been a greater example of cowardliness or indifference or indulgence by former presidents who have received hundreds of millions of votes and still have a lot of support in the country to go back into the arena? Organize citizens, get great media, raise funds for local pro-impeachment lobbying groups from liberal and conservative voters in every congressional district. These ex-presidents can decisively turn the balance of power and reflect the demand of the task force and many others for the immediate impeachment and removal. We must demand that they do so. They harbor the trust of millions of Americans for better and for worse, and they are not using that trust, given the enormous latent assets that could be awakened if they step forward, in the public arena. Left to do whatever he wants, Trump has worsened a fascist dictatorship with police state manifestations and the beginnings of reigns of terror. starting in Iran and also in some of our cities. Now, again, this is after he called Bush and Obama war criminals. Ralph Nader, four-time failed presidential candidate, said that Obama, all the former presidents, should push for impeachment. So there's your two impeachment updates. We've got some other comments though coming in from pundits, from talking heads that I think you're going to find interesting. Kind of the radicalization of many on the left who are silent in support of the people of Iran, which is very interesting. But we're going to tell you about what they had to say and most importantly, what you have to say. So stay with us. We'll be right back with hour number 2 after this.
With Steel Battery. Save up to $50 on select AK battery tools. Shop in-store or online.
The best chicken wings?
Ask Google. The best driving range? Ask Google.
The best Jeep dealer?
Ask Google. We did. Google reviews from customers rank Ferrario Jeep in Elmira the highest Jeep dealer in our area.
If you don't see me, I can't save you any money.
Check out the new Jeeps during our Declaration of Deals event.
Visit Ferrario in Elmira or at Ferrario.com.
Every job demands control, no matter how rough the terrain. That's why Ferris features patented front and rear suspension, turning rough terrain into smooth motion. Less stress on your crew, less stress on your equipment. More lawns mowed. Feels like more money in your pocket. Feels like a Ferris.
And we are back with hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live and proudly from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. A comment from a viewer: Nutty Nader, like Crazy Carvel, needs to fade away. Yes, Ralph Nader, 92 years old, by the way, if that is something that interests you. I'm not being rude here. I didn't know he was still around. Governor Hochul mocked Trump's Iran toll plan. That was to share Strait of Hormuz shipping tolls with Iran. She compared, this was her exact quote. So let's get this straight. Trump's plan is congestion pricing, her press office tweeted. Okay. The sarcastic missive came a couple hours after Trump told ABC News that the U.S. hopes to launch a joint venture with Iran to collect revenue from oil tankers and other ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz. Anyway, that was Hochul's big takeaway. Now notice, it came from her press office. She was not clever enough to think of that on her own. Keep that in mind. Now, we talk about the extreme, and that viewer mentioned James Carville, and we saw really how scary what many refer to as Trump derangement syndrome can be. And when I say it's very scary, when you have James Carville praying an actual prayer to God, hoping that God fills him with more hate for Trump, you start to see how unhinged it can get. Here's another example. I guess since we're going blast from the past, Ralph Nader, around the same time we had this guy being relevant, Michael Moore. Remember Michael Moore, the quote-unquote filmmaker? He unleashed a frenzied rant yesterday, calling President Trump a terrorist and threatening a Holocaust after the commander-in-chief warned Iran that its whole civilization would be wiped out. We saw a lot of people, and I think this is an important takeaway from yesterday's program and something we said over and over. The same people that said Trump was about to start a genocide, was about to end the world, was about to use a nuclear weapon, and they were calling for his impeachment, are the same people that now are mocking him for quote-unquote chickening out. It makes absolutely no sense. What is their stated goal then? If your argument is one is terrifying, and then when that is back to, he backs away a bit, then you mock and ridicule him. But anyway, Michael Moore at that time when that tweet came out, let me see if I can find the whole quote. And I know we've quoted enough of Nader and we've quoted enough of Michael Moore. But he said that the United States are the bad guys in the war with Iran. And he hailed the Middle Eastern nation of Iran as one of the world's greatest civilizations. Do you think there's a level of hate that you just can't back away from at some point? Our leaders and our media are stupid enough to keep asking questions like, why do they hate us? Hate us? They don't hate us. We hate them. I mean, I guess that just ignores the history of them saying that America is a great Satan for the last 40 plus years. But anyway, we're the bad guys. If you don't realize that, under previous presidents, at least Donald Trump has ripped off the mask and shown you who we really are. More than blasted the U.S. as the only nation sick and violent enough to use nuclear weapons, while bizarrely praising Tehran for building a diverse global power, advancing human rights, and leading the world on multiple fronts. He's saying that about Iran. Quote, Iran is the cradle of one of the greatest civilizations this planet has ever had. While our ancestors in Europe were still figuring out how to build a hut, the Persians had already written the world's first declaration of human rights, built a multicultural empire that treated conquered peoples with dignity, and were doing math and medicine that we couldn't catch up to for 1,000 years. These are the people who gave us algebra, medicine, and the theme song to Game of Thrones. Despite harsh government crackdowns and censorship today, Iran still produces some of the world's greatest filmmakers. America's been meddling with and attacking Iran since 1953. He then called on, which became a very common talking point yesterday, he called on the U.S. military to disobey illegal and immoral orders, urged Congress to impeach Pete Hegseth, and demanded the 25th Amendment be invoked to remove Trump from office. Imagine being like the 35th person and posting the same exact thing that the other 35 posted and saying, I'm clever. I'm doing something new here. No one is coming to save us. We must do it ourselves, he fumed. So Iran is one of the world's greatest civilizations, and the U.S. is the bad guy. Representative Raj Krishnamurthy was on CNN's International's The Brief, and he said, I think that the fact that the president did not take escalatory action, military action, again, after those maniacal tweets that he put out, means that we're hopefully in the direction of non-escalation, which is something. I'd like to see it go to a different place. I'm hopeful that the talks yield something that is more long-lasting than a 2-week ceasefire. But my biggest concern is this, which is that it takes two sides to come to an agreement. And the Iranians, quite frankly, are not ready to conclude this war. I think they might want to exact an even greater cost on Americans. And my biggest fear is that rhetoric that Donald Trump uses, the actions that he takes, could actually provoke them to take preemptive action, such as maybe a terrorist attack on American soil or against American interests elsewhere, or using ballistic missiles. They have thousands of these ballistic missiles that they could use on American interests and bases in the Middle East and, of course, Europe. I would also have to say, if you're that concerned, Representative, I would say maybe start looking at the funding of DHS. Could be helpful in the scheme of things for our security. I guess Chris Cuomo and Bill O'Reilly got into it, if that's something that interests you. Chris Cuomo, of course, the brother of disgraced former governor, Andrew Cuomo. They got into it over Iran's nuclear capacity. I don't want to go through and quote them. Why did I even get into this? But they got so much, though, that Cuomo had to yell at O'Reilly saying, it's my show, pal. I don't want to go. No, because I was going to read the back and forth. You can find it for yourself at the New York Post. Pete Hegseth scolded a reporter who interrupted him at a Pentagon press briefing yesterday, saying, why are you so rude? She interrupted as he was calling on other journalists, telling her, just wait. During the exchange, Hegseth had just finished answering questions about Iran's nuclear capabilities and what he described as a new regime dynamic when he turned to recognize another reporter. Then a separate question was shouted from the room. Excuse me, why are you so rude? Just wait, I'm calling on people. Thank you. So nasty, he said. I think Trump is getting to some of these people. the influence is rubbing off on them. The reporter he initially called on then proceeded with her question, referencing a recent statement from Trump about potential military action against Iran. So the reason I bring up Pete Hegseth, there is a piece at the Daily Beast. If you're not familiar with the Daily Beast, I guess we're quoting a lot of far-left outlets today and far-left people like Michael Moore, Ralph Nader. Well, Daily Beast is far-left. Their piece by Michael Daly this morning or late yesterday is, Why Pentagon Pete? Because everybody has to do a nickname. I don't understand that. But Pentagon Pete is certain to be the biggest casualty of Trump's war. As he declared a decisive military victory over Iran on Wednesday, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth repeated his favorite self-aggrandizing, I guess, maybe. It got cut off here. As he listed regime leaders and that they were dead. Okay. But this new... I don't want to go through why they think that we're... The Daily Beast, much like the mainstream media, is an outlet that wants you to believe that we are losing in Iran and that they want you to believe it is perhaps the longest war we've ever been involved in. That's why, going back to the speech in front of the nation that Trump gave, what was that, last week, I like that he put things into perspective because that's how they're presenting this. But anyway, their concept is, and I just ask you without going through their 17-page missive about how bad Pete Hegseth is, but do you think he's the biggest loser in all this? He's the next one to be fired. Because what happened is, and I think, well, and they end with this, and nobody should be surprised if Hegseth joins the list, fired. So as they mock him for going through the leaders that were dead, they were doing the same style of, okay, then Pam Bondi, fired. Hegseth will be soon fired. I think one of the problems, and I know I've said this before, and some people have disagreed with me. I think Kristi Noem had to go. I don't know if she was the best choice to begin with, but I think she had kind of outstayed her welcome long before she was fired. But I think Trump was aware, I know he was, you could just tell by how he's handled things, that once that floodgate opened, all mainstream media would be predicting who's next. Now, Pam Bondi was next, but do you believe Pete Hegseth will be the next on the chopping block? I don't know why he would be at this point, especially in the middle of this war with Iran. I don't know. But that's what the Daily Beast, the far-left Daily Beast, is suggesting. All right, Schumer is blasting Trump's Iran war as a failure. Isn't there almost like, and I don't believe it's a failure whatsoever, but when they suggest on the left, and those in the media, when they start to suggest that it's a failure, that it isn't successful, there's almost a glee in their voice that they want America to lose this. Isn't that sickening? When you see that almost celebration, and I'm sure you know people, well, maybe not, I shouldn't say I'm sure, but you may know people in your life that are on the left or aren't fans of Trump, that almost, when they talk about Iran, they're almost excited to kind of badmouth Trump and what he's doing. I don't understand it. I don't know how you can't look at it as being successful. I think we still have more to go, and I'm going to tell you some other people that have that same kind of mindset. I think we have more to go, but I don't know how you can, with all the leaders that have been taken out, with all the military capabilities that Iran had being denigrated and destroyed, I don't know how you can see it as a failure, but the people that want it to be a failure and then find ways in their mind to say it's a failure, celebrating it. Chuck Schumer announced the Senate Democrats will again force a vote on War Powers resolution to rein in Trump's use of military in Iran. When the upper chamber returns, the Senate is slated to return Monday, but the exact day when Democrats will pull the trigger next week is still in the air. Schumer argued that the war was, quote, one of the very worst military and foreign policy actions that the United States has ever taken. Wow. Trump must end the war now. The only viable solution is a lasting diplomatic one. A 2-week ceasefire, especially one as fragile as this, is not a strategy. It's not a diplomatic solution. It's not a plan. So, celebrating in a way that he believes it's a failure, I don't think you can reach that conclusion unless you really hate Donald Trump. And someone that has that same point, I know I'm running late, but someone that has that same point is Representative Mike Lawler. You may recall the name. There was talks of him running for governor of New York State. Of course, he backed out to let Elise Stefanik run, and then Elise Stefanik dropped out because Bruce Blakeman wouldn't drop his bid. Yeah, we don't have to go through all that. But Mike Lawler was on Fox Business Network's Mornings with Maria. And he said after a 5-week incursion in Iran, in which we have eliminated much of their leadership, the Ayatollah, the clerics, the IRGC, we have severely destroyed their ballistic missiles capability and decimated their naval fleet, and basically have air superiority for the better part of 3+ weeks. And I think ultimately the Iranian regime, the remnants of it, understand for once that they need to actually negotiate. And I think the president, of course, as he is prone to do, used extreme rhetoric that, certainly forced a capitulation by the regime. And again, I think there is optimism here, but it is something that obviously we are cautious about. As the old adage goes, trust but verify. I think the fact that a 2-week ceasefire was negotiated, that there will be a continuing negotiation on these remaining points, including the removal of the enriched uranium, that is vital. And for my Democrat colleagues who have all but been rooting for failure here, and they have been, I wouldn't say all but, they have been rooting for failure here. I think they need to wake up to the fact that after 47 years of a terrorist regime that has sought to ensure death to America, that it is a time for all of us to unify behind the objective here, which is to ensure that Iran never possesses a nuclear weapon, that the reign of terror and funding of terror proxies in the region comes to an end, and that the threats they pose to their neighbors and our allies and assets, our military assets in the region, be eliminated. That is something every member of Congress should embrace, and sadly, some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle fail to recognize what has happened over these 5 weeks because they have allowed their hatred of Donald Trump to reign supreme. I agree entirely with Representative Lawler. We've got more on this when we return. Running just a tad bit late. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
More cars, lower prices. Simmons Rockwell. Whether you're in the market for new, used, or certified pre-owned, Simmons Rockwell locations across the Twin Tiers have more of what you're looking for with our best price right on the windshield. Make car buying simple when you drive your deal at a Simmons Rockwell location near you, where you'll always find more cars at lower prices.
In a real journey since 2014, when I first had my injury, I realized that my home was just not working for me and that it was time to ask for help. Homes for Our Troops is really giving me my life back. The shower allows me to go in and turn around with my chair, pull down storage racks, automated door systems, hours of my morning given back to me. Adaptive sports are a huge part of my life, a huge part of my healing journey as well. Homes for Our Troops helped with making sure that I had a home gym so that I can continue to train. This past year, I was able to host Thanksgiving in my home, and it was the first time I was able to have my whole family in one place, and I was able to contribute to the meal. There are a lot more veterans in need, and Homes for Our Troops is going to be there to help them too.
Homes for Our Troops builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans and enables them to rebuild their lives. Join our mission at hfotusa.org.
Hello there, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We get to enjoy some sunshine for our Thursday. South-southeast wind around 10 miles per hour, pushing us about 5 or so degrees on the warm side of average. Then we'll stay mild tonight with lows in upper 30s, south to mid-40s looking west. By Friday, highs are closer to the 70-degree mark, mid and upper 60s with some showery potential. Pretty dry over the weekend, briefly cooler, but warm at the start of next week.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments. We got Don Berlew coming up in just a moment. Mark writes in, that dude saying we hate Iran and they don't hate us is totally ridiculous, when Iran has been saying to us for years, death to America. Yes, that Michael Moore. He's always been radical, but again, that hatred has overtaken him, just like when we have a James Carville and so many others. Coming from a different viewer, Mickey Mouse Moore should join Peter Pan in La La Land. He's another worthless piece of work. Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer. Department of Defense, I thought that title went out along with the Gulf of Mexico. It's embarrassing that reporters aren't better informed. It makes people question whether or not what they are reporting is true. Well, I don't know who I quoted. I apologize. I don't know what outlet it was that I would have quoted that said Department of Defense. But I would say that they're doing it for a political point. They're not, they know it's the Department of War. They're doing it for a political point to not accept the name change, to not accept Trump's name change. It's as simple as that. They're doing it, what they're doing is showing their bias while saying it's under the guise of some journalistic standard. So yes, I don't know who I quoted. I apologize. I normally try to tell you who I'm quoting, but if they said Department of Defense, and that was an outlet that is trying to score political points and trying to be petty against the president. All right, comment from a different view, and I apologize. I didn't mean to do that. It must have probably something I just glanced over quickly. It was probably Daily Beast, wasn't it? If it's a Daily Beast, yeah, they are far left, and I wouldn't believe what they're reporting is true either. I would say it should raise your red flags that if there is an outlet you're going to, and whether it's print, whether it's website, whether it's the mainstream media, if they do use the term Department of Defense, have the red flags go up. You probably should be looking for a different outlet that's probably a biased kind of pushing a liberal agenda type of outlet. All right, Ken writes in, how would someone get an amendment put on the election ballot for the 2028 election, asking the electorate if they want a law that makes it illegal for federal, state, and local politicians to lie to the American people, punishable by 5 years in prison without the possibility of pardons, commutations, or parole? I would have no idea how to begin that, because when there's presidential elections, there's local or statewide props, but there's not normally a federal that I can remember. I don't know. And that would also, I would just be concerned, Ken, because who would be in charge of deciding what was a lie and what was not? Because remember, the left is telling you that Trump lies on everything, and they will quote unquote back it up even if we know they can't. So I don't want it to be like what Bruce Blakeman went through and had to sit at a panel of 4 Democrats and 3 Republicans and be told that he wasn't going to get matching funds because the 4 Republicans went complete along party lines. So I don't know how it's enforceable without taking away some First Amendment rights, but just talking about the process, I would have no idea. Representative Carlos Gimenez says that finishing in the job in Iran means ending the regime, saying we haven't done that despite what Trump claims. And there's a lot of people that have that attitude, and I would ask your point, that we're not quite there yet. We haven't finished the job, that we haven't ended the regime. We've got to make sure they can't get nuclear weapons. Mark Levin was on Hannity's show, and I thought he had a good point. He said, this thing's not over. It's not that I'm a warmonger. It's just that they're a warmonger. I think he raises a good point. He just wants to see the end of it, and so many others do. If we're going to get involved, we don't want a scenario where we back off and then 2-3 years down the line, perhaps longer after Trump's gone and who knows who's in there, you get a Iran that is thriving for the nuclear weapon or already has gotten the nuclear weapon. So I understand Mark Levin and Representative Gimenez, their point on this. So I'm not a warmonger. It's that they're, meaning Iran, are a warmonger. That's a very good point from Mark Levin. All right, we got to take a short break because when we return, we're going to be talking with Don Berlew. A couple last-second things after that about Iran. Do I have time? The National Review, let me just have one more second before I go to break. The National Review believes Iran is preparing to dupe the West again. On the menu today, the U.S.-Israeli war against Iran reaches a proposed 2-week ceasefire, at least on paper. The ceasefire has not stopped Iran from firing missiles and drones at Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates. The list of demands from Iran is an Ayatollah's wish list. But President Trump seems bizarrely... Oh, got cut off. Okay. Notice a 10-point proposal from Iran, which Trump called a workable basis on which to negotiate. And they go through this. There's been some questions of whether or not what is being reported on and the 10-point plan is accurate. Trump has called into question some of the outlets that have reported on it. But what they're saying here is Trump may well believe that he can agree to a terrible deal with the Iranian regime and convince the American public that it was a great victory. I wouldn't count on that happening either. So they believe that Iran, at the National Review, is preparing to dupe the West like they've done throughout history. Your thoughts on that? But we got to take a short break. When we come back, we're looking forward to it. Our good friend Don Berlew after this. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think about calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that can happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you total your car, you kill someone.
New York State nearly $60 million towards improving key roadways across the southern tier.
Many older homes are still at risk for exposing residents to high levels of lead.
The Nani Hood Parent Resource Center once again brought the community together for its annual Halloween parade.
Around the southern tier, Finger Lake stands out for its scenery and wine scene. This year's dry drought brought some positives to the crop. Lecom Center is looking for fans to show up and show out.
Do you know that children growing up with poor air quality have smaller lungs and higher rates of asthma than children that grow up with good air quality? And unfortunately, poor communities have poor air quality. IQ Air Foundation is working to change this. Today, the IQ Air Foundation provides filtration technology to schools with poor air quality through our Clean Air for Kids program. Our goal is to help over 50,000 school children every year breathe over 90% cleaner air indoors, helping to level the playing field, reduce barriers to learning, reduce sick days, and increase test scores. Mitigating poor air quality is key to environmental justice. Help Clean Air for Kids reach more children at IQAirFoundation.org.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Voss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. It's time already to talk about Watkins Glen International. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. So kickoff is actually this weekend.
It is. On Friday, we're going to do our event with Watkins Glen Area Chamber of Commerce. We're going to do pace car rides and give everybody a peek in the box what the summer at the Glen's going to be like.
Yeah. Well, and how's the planning going? Because this is really kind of the nitty gritty right now, because not only is opening day Friday, really, and then Saturday, but then right around the corner, almost a month, almost to the day, is Go Bowling at the Glen.
It sure is. So, traditionally we'll have 8 months to get ready or so because we're usually later on in the year. And this year we're earlier, so we actually started planning last fall, and we planned through the winter, didn't take any downtime, and we're planning accordingly for the weather, and we're hoping it's going to be a great weekend.
I'm sure it is.
Racing in itself will be a great weekend. We're going to get all 4 series back again, so that's what we're excited about. Our fans will start showing up on Thursday, and we got a new concert this year.
Oh, yeah?
So we're excited about that.
Well, and it's really kind of unique because you've been here with Watkins Glen International for 3 years, and each year has been a different date for you.
It is. It's been kind of a dance, I will tell you.
But that means you're ready for anything now at this point. No matter what day, unless it's Christmas, you're ready for it. How different was it to plan for this year's being in May?
So traditionally, you'd have all summer long, and you'd be, everything would be lush and green and things like that. And right now, we're like, okay, we'll have maybe 3 weeks for the weather that warms up and gets everything ready. But we're anticipating it. A couple years ago, we had the Kyle Petty charity ride the same weekend, and it was absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. So we're hoping it will be that way this year. And if not, we're still going to have a great weekend to race.
Well, I don't understand, because I know there's been some criticism, but I mean, you guys can't control the weather, number one.
No.
Number two, there's sports in every different season. We were talking about this off the air, but people that go to the Bills game can't complain about going up to Watkins, right? I mean, there's Bills games, there's baseball games where it's too hot. So it's just it's kind of a new chapter. You just have to prepare a little different than maybe you did in the past.
Right. And, I actually think that, people in the Northeast when they dress to come to a game or to even go to work, we take all three seasons.
I know.
I do it all the time. But we'll be prepared. They'll be prepared. We're going to do a lot of different things to Mother's Day weekend, so we're going to have different activations for that. We're just looking at it as a whole new opportunity to present the weekend for our NASCAR Cup Series in a different way.
And what a great way to kind of kick off the summer season, really. I mean, I know it's early May, but still, I mean, you're just starting your summer break by going to Bowling at the Glen. That's awesome.
Right. So our Go Bowling at the Glen, we've got on Friday, we're going to start out with our Arca Menard series, and we go in our Craftsman Truck series. People really enjoy both of those on Friday. And Saturday, the O'Reilly, and then our Cup series on Sunday. I mean, 3 days, 4 races. I mean, what more could you ask for in a weekend? And 4 concerts.
And 4 concerts? Oh,
we
really?
do a concert on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then we're going to have Vincent Mason on Sunday in our concert area. Just before pre-race, so anybody that's at the Glen will be able to enjoy him.
Wow, you don't normally have 4 concerts.
No, we usually only have 3.
Yeah, wow, so you're making it really exciting this year. Get everybody out on Mother's Day weekend. What has the reaction been overall because I know there's nothing you can do about it, but moving, has it been kind of positive? Has it been negative? What have you been?
To be honest with you, I think there's been a balance. So, at first people struggle. Our fans struggle. I mean, when you have 3 date changes in my 3 years there, that's a challenge in itself for our fans. But I think at the end of the day, and I think they'll be there. I believe that they're going to support our series and the NASCAR and the drivers and
amazing setups for this.
That they do, and they'll start coming in on Wednesday and Thursday, and it'll be a steady stream. We're excited. We do first camper of flags and gifts, and then we do surprise and delights in the campground all weekend. We've got a couple drivers that are going to visit the campgrounds, and we've got quite a few Q&As planned with drivers throughout the weekend. Our NASCAR experience will be filled with drivers and entertainment, so that'll be a nice thing. We have our Kids Zone. We're going to do a special VIP program for kids, so that'll be coming out shortly. We got several activations for Mom.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. And you know what's funny? At first, I was thinking, being this early, that means you get to enjoy your summer. But then I looked at your schedule. Yeah, then I looked at your schedule and I said, well, it doesn't really affect you at all, does it?
No, we're going to enjoy the summer. We're just going to be super busy, because we added some new events in this year.
And I love, because obviously it's a big 250th celebration of America, I love the Stars, Stripes, and Speed July 4th, having a kind of a car show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a local group. Hooked on Driving is putting that on again this year over the 4th of July weekend. So they've also got some really neat things planned for 4th of July.
So, again, coming up on May 10th, but this weekend is the opening. You can take your car around the track, right?
On Saturday.
That's like the biggest fan favorite.
It's really cool. We'll start lining up about 8:30 on Saturday morning. We're going to run all the way till 5 o'clock. And I think as of yesterday, we were around 815 already pre-registered. Oh, wow. So I'd encourage everybody to come early. Yeah. Spend the day with us. The Pyramid will be open. We're going to have the Buffalo Grill open. It should be a great day. And the coffee shop from Watkins Glen will be there. So we'll have a great day. And should people get tickets ahead of time, or can they get them at the door? They can get them at the door. We encourage them just for ease and, to move into the track, to go to theglen.com, and they can pick them right up there. Before we go, changing topics a little bit, but we saw the great pictures with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano in Albany. How was it? It was great. Phil's been a super supporter of the track, and as well as Tom O'Mara and Chris Randall have. And so when we launched our motorsports working group, it was just trying to push and let everybody realize how much motorsports brings to an economic driver throughout the state. Right. There's a lot of tracks all over New York State. Mm-hmm. So that was the push. We had a ton of support from other tracks that got together that day and really talked about, what do we have in common? Mm-hmm. One is a lot of people run Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Not as many run all day, all 7 days a week like we do. But at the end of the day, we all are supporting the motorsports industry. So the goal is to let the state know, look at tourism, that we are a driver, an economic driver in all the communities that we operate in. And we bring people from all around the United States and other countries to participate in events at our tracks. Well, it sounds like there was some excitement around your visit, too. It seemed like people were taking to it, right? It did. We had a great turnout. We had our pace car in the concourse. Before it was even set up, people were stopping to take pictures.
Yeah.
So it was quite a conversation piece that day.
Oh, that's great. Well, we're talking a little about everything here, about Watkins Glen International. It's hard to believe, but it kicks off this weekend, and then we've got Go Bowling at the Glen just about a month from today, May 10th. Well, thanks so much for being on the program. Where can people find out more before we go?
I would have them go to theglen.com, and one of our representatives, we can key in, they can call them back at a specific time, but they can help them to work through our ticketing, our hospitality, parking, and everything like that.
And there's all the different levels like in years past, right?
There is, and that way they can talk to and find out where do they want to camp, where would they like to sit, and really get them the package that will suit their needs.
Well, great. Well, thanks so much for being on the program. Best of luck.
Oh, thanks.
All right, let's talk again in the summer.
See you at the Glen.
All right, sounds good. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Watch news from the Twin Tiers and catch local events on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
At William R., they only handle motor vehicle accident cases.
No, I'm not going to take any low-ball offers.
There's nothing William loves more than fighting for his clients and giving them the big money they deserve.
Okay, wow.
But everyone needs an outlet, a chance to get away from it all.
Heads bowed, eyes closed, and now go to your happy place.
Rideshare truck, motorcycle, car, only call William Matar.
Every job has a moment where it could slow down, or it could keep moving. At D&L Supply and Rental, we focus on what actually matters, keeping your momentum. From emergency rentals to weekend projects, we make it easy, we make it fast, we make it right. Less downtime, because our team knows the job, has what you need, and gets it to you even on Saturdays. D&L, built for momentum.
When I have an asthma attack, I feel scared. Sometimes my parents have to take me to the hospital. I feel like a fish with no water.
You know how to react to their asthma attacks. Here's how to prevent them. Because even one attack is one too many.
Hello there, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We get to enjoy some sunshine for our Thursday. South-southeast wind around 10 miles per hour, pushing us about 5 or so degrees on the warm side of average. Then we'll stay mild tonight with lows in upper 30s, south to mid-40s looking west. By Friday, highs are closer to the 70-degree mark, mid and upper 60s with some showery potential. Pretty dry over the weekend, briefly cooler, but warm.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to some viewer comments here. A comment on the idea, wasn't Michael Moore, that current Iranians get credit for one of the world's earliest civilizations. It turns out that the Mesopotamians are genetically speaking more closely related, quite ironically, to modern Iraqi Iranian Jews, most of whom left long ago. Interesting, and it was Michael Moore who said that. A comment from a different viewer, wasn't it 3 Democrats who voted against Blakeman, not 4 Republicans, as I thought I heard you say? Maybe I misspoke. It was actually 4 Democrats that voted against Blakeman getting the matching funding, and 3 Republicans that voted for. So I'm not sure how I worded it, if I misspoke. Yes, it was 4 Democrats who voted against it. We have a little bit of an update on that here in just a moment. Comment from a different viewer, just watching this morning. Let me try it again. Just watching this morning. I think that those who want to see the U.S. fail in Iran are fueled by the news media, the mainstream media. You can hear and see the glory they take in being so negative. And that's what we were talking about, was in reference to what Chuck Schumer had to say, and almost this excitement when they think that they have something that's failed. And we saw it yesterday with Hakeem Jeffries when he was saying that the ceasefire wasn't enough. Now, Ahmad Shari, and I want to get your opinion on this, says that President Trump's 2-week ceasefire with Iran is a huge gamble, and allowing Pakistan to act as the go-between only raises the stakes. Pakistan, after all, is the nation where Osama bin Laden found refuge for a decade after the 9/11 massacres. It's where the Taliban enjoyed sanctuary for 20 years while continuing to kill U.S. and NATO troops on its way back to power in Afghanistan. And today, Pakistan serves as China's regional agent. Tehran, with Islamabad's help, has offered a 10-point plan as a baseline for negotiations, but it's a bad deal that the U.S. shouldn't take seriously. And I'm not going to go through the specifics of it, but your thoughts on that, and I thought it was a very good point. The risks of a bad deal with Tehran are enormous, and even a delay in the negotiations would give the regime time to rearm itself and its proxies, enable them to resume attacks with greater precision. A durable peace must halt the Iranian nuclear threat for good and terminate its 5-decade campaign of subversion and intimidation of its neighbors. A dishonest broker like Pakistan has no business being at the table. That's Ahmad Shari, a senior research analyst at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Now, as we wrap up on this, hold on real quick. My chair was sinking. As we wrap up on this, there's a couple pieces, and I think we can move on from it and talk about New York, though you can continue the discussion. But the Post editorial board said the world breathed a sigh of relief Tuesday night on news of a ceasefire in the Iran war. But this is certainly no time for President Trump to go wobbly. And that's kind of to the point about Pakistan. The longer the ceasefire goes, the more that they are rearming. But we'll continue. If he can't work out a comprehensive deal to end the Iran threat for good, he needs to get the jets back in the air over Iran pronto and let the bombs drop. If not, he does risk that taco label. I don't think he's concerned about the taco label. I think that's overplayed and overhyped. But I'll continue. Trump saw enough hope for a peace deal and an immediate opening of the Strait of Hormuz to hold off for now on the enormous additional devastation he threatened to inflict on the Iranian regime. Fine. But it's far from clear what exactly the Iranian leaders he's dealing with, whoever they are, will ultimately agree to and stick to. That's why any deal to be worked out over the next weeks must be absolutely airtight. It must cover all the bases, pave the way for a future Iran that can't continue to threaten the world and wreak havoc, whether through actual violence or economic terrorism. Nor can Iran's negotiators be allowed to drag out the talks indefinitely, spared of fresh airstrikes from the United States or Israel. So basically saying, and we've seen them play this out in the past, basically stall so that they have more time to prepare. Trump must be prepared to resume bombing, including of infrastructure used by Iran's military, if, as he would put it, he smells baloney. Indeed, he should warn publicly, and not just threaten, but mean it, that he's ready to restart the attacks and even ratchet them up if Iran refuses to meet his conditions. And he did say that, though he hasn't followed through on it yet, but he did say that yesterday. Let's face it, this is the world's one chance to end the 47-year Iran nightmare once and for all, or at least to set conditions that can lead to its end. It's Trump's chance to make good on his promise that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, not in a year, not in 10 years. Remember, it took 47 years for any U.S. president to confront the Ayatollahs the way Trump has. No other leader will have the guts to do it again. And they raise a very good point there, and that's why I mentioned this. Look at North Korea's nukes if you doubt it. Yet Trump himself may be less willing to prolong the war now. Oil prices fell the minute he announced the ceasefire. The markets shot up. He may be tempted to think he can declare full victory and be done with it, rather than see oil prices jump back up, with Republicans damaged politically just as midterms near. But if he doesn't finish the job and Democrats take control of Congress, they surely won't let him finish it even if he later wants to. That would leave Iran in a position to rebuild with an even greater incentive to rush to acquire nukes. Its leaders would be once bitten and they survived, making them twice as less shy to hold the world's oil hostage through the strait. History would not look kindly on Trump should that happen, which is why a return to the pre-war status quo with the strait open and the missiles silent won't be good enough. Yes, Iran's military has been seriously degraded, but clearly not to the point where it can't close the strait at will or hit its enemies. It even fired missiles and drones at sites around the region after the ceasefire went into effect and threatened to destroy any ship that attempted to pass through the strait without its permission, which could be had for a price. So what must the deal include? Pretty much everything that was needed from the beginning, starting with ending Tehran's control of the strait, an international waterway that never imposed tolls of any kind and never should. Iran has managed to retain the use of the strait as a weapon as its missile launchers and drones dwindle. It can't be allowed to hang on to that power and deter future attacks meant to stop it from acquiring nukes should it attempt that. To strip it of that power, the deal might need to ensure the destruction of all weapons and bases it used to attack shipping. Obviously, it must also give up all of its enriched uranium and agree not to enrich or acquire any more. And it must agree to have its entire nuclear production capabilities destroyed and never rebuilt. And to assure that it lives up to that, it must consent to thorough, unimpeded, anytime, anywhere monitoring and verification protocols administered by trustworthy officials from, say, the United States, Israel, or some Arab countries. Not everything needs to be worked out in the next 2 weeks, of course. But ultimately, Iran's new leaders must also guarantee Iranians the right to peaceful protest. It must end support for terrorism and its terror proxies in the region, including Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthis and militias throughout the region. Trump can hold out the prospects of sanction relief, but that needs to be earned over time by having Iran shed its fanaticism and commit to civilized behavior. Vice President J.D. Vance, who reportedly opposed Operation Epic Fury, now has a chance to prove that negotiations can bring about the desired result. We're wishing him all the luck in the world, but again, Iran needs to know that an intense military response is Plan B. No more deadline extensions. And Vance's reputation is on the line, given many believe declaring a ceasefire now has removed an opportunity to gain further leverage over the regime before talks begin. To Trump's enormous credit, he's brought Iran, with Israel's help, closer than ever to serious change. Its military threat is severely diminished, and countless leaders of the old regime are dead. It's possible new Iranian leaders are emerging who are willing to take a different path. But if the hardliners prevail and Iran shows any unwillingness to reform, Trump must be ready to tighten the screws. It's now or never for Iran and this is their point, their takeaway, for Iran and Trump's legacy. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about New York State issues. We've got another couple quick things to jump around on. Oh, we might, we're going to jump around. Reading your comments, reading your questions when we return. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
They say when you love doing something, it stops being a chore. Ferris mowers with patented front and rear suspension are designed to turn hard work into an easy ride, no matter how rough the terrain. Quality cut, less fatigue, more control. Feels like the grass can't grow fast enough. Feels like a Ferris.
Having a safe home is essential to many aspects of our lives. From a sense of community and safety, to physical and mental health, to economic security and independence. Most homes in our communities are not accessible and are not designed to accommodate the changes that come with age, including the risk of falling. The Older Adults Home Modification Program helps reduce the risk of falls, improves safety, and increases accessibility and independence. Through this program, Rebuilding Together works with older adults to provide no-cost preventative home repairs so our neighbors can safely age in place in the homes and communities they love. To learn more, visit rebuildingtogether.org/safeathome.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So I had mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, or in the 6 o'clock hour at some point, that gubernatorial candidate Bruce Blakeman is asking a state court to reverse a decision made by a Democratic-led board to block his campaign from accessing millions of dollars in public matching funds. You even had outlets, I don't know if we talked about this on air or off air with Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski, but we talked about how even what you would consider more far left or, leaning left media outlets were saying that this would be a wrong decision if that Democrat-led group decided not to give him matching funds, because the whole argument for this matching funds, which whether you're for or against them, I'm against them. I don't think your tax dollars should go to pay for someone that you disagree with, personally. But their whole argument, the Democrat-run Albany, when they came up with it, was that it was supposed to make it better or more difficult for incumbents. It was supposed to make it better for the quote-unquote little guy to potentially run a successful campaign. It was supposed to be absent of Democrat versus Republican, and they proved all of that wrong by their decision, their very partisan and biased decision. Without getting into the weeds too much, Blakeman filed that he was running, but he did not file with his running mate because no form existed at the time that he had filed for it. But they said, too bad, the onus was on him, that he would have to have corrected it at some point. Blakeman, and I guess this can only prove that Hochul's a little concerned about Blakeman. But Blakeman filed a lawsuit Wednesday against the state's Public Campaign Finance Board, arguing it exceeded its authority when its Democrat contingent blocked him from participating in a state program matching small campaign donations at a 6-to-1 rate. Yeah, so if you make a small donation well, he's not getting the matching funds, but let's say he was, if the lawsuit's successful. So if you give $1 to his campaign, he's getting $6. Where's that $6 coming from? You and I, the taxpayer. Now, you may say, well, I like Blakeman. That works out well. Yeah, but what about the candidates that you don't like? But we'll continue. The lawsuit argues that 4 Democrats on the board acted arbitrarily when they invalidated Blakeman's participation in the program last week and asked a state Supreme Court judge in Albany to reverse the decision. Blakeman's attorney, Adam Fusco, said this determination casts serious doubt on whether the board is truly a bipartisan state agency. Democracy is about fostering participation in the electoral process, not playing partisan politics designed to weaponize the system and clear the field of meaningful competition. The stakes are considerable for Blakeman, who has struggled to raise campaign cash in his bid to deny Hochul a second full term. And it comes as no other Republican filed to run in the gubernatorial primary before Monday's deadline, decreasing the maximum amount of matching funds he would be able to access if the lawsuit is successful. That is also interesting, even though we had him on the program, that looks to be that I didn't even think about the Monday deadline, that Larry Sharp did not get the signatures kind of as we had expected, did not get the signatures to primary Blakeman. It is not an easy task. I think people think petitions are a lot easier than they are. They are not. He needed a large amount from various areas. Apparently, he was not successful in that. Now, he may still run third party, as he had suggested on this program. I don't think that's a surprise, as he's done that numerous times before. But the Public Campaign Finance Board, in a 4-to-3 party line, found Blakeman and his running mate, Todd Hood, didn't file the appropriate paperwork to receive matching funds. In December, new filing rules required Blakeman and Hood to file joint paperwork to join the matching fund program. But Republicans argued that form does not actually exist and that an application Blakeman filled without Hood remains valid. Yes, the form does not exist. It is just until recently where they combined where governor and lieutenant governor were on the same ticket, because in the past, in theory, you could have won governor as a Republican and a Democrat could have been your lieutenant governor. Under state law, in effect, for the first time in a gubernatorial race, qualifying candidates are eligible to have certain small donations matched by public funds. To participate, a candidate has to raise $500,000 from at least 5,000 state residents, each giving $1,050 or less. The first $250 of each eligible contribution is matched at a 6-to-1 rate. So we'll be keeping a close eye on this. Because it really, Blakeman already has a gigantic uphill battle. This just makes it even more difficult, almost to the point of calling it quits. And then they go through and they said judges decide otherwise, but the Blakeman had been gearing up for a long shot primary that would have made him eligible for some primary matching funds were he to raise enough. But that changed Monday when Larry Sharp, who had twice before run for governor on the Libertarian line, announced he was not able to gather enough petition signatures to run for the GOP nomination. No other candidate filed for the Republican primary. I thought it was an uphill battle for Sharp. He seemed a lot more confident than I expected. He said, I know it would be hard. It was harder than I thought. I had big plans. It wasn't working. Both Hochul and Blakeman will also have to return some of their campaign haul to donors. State law allows contributions of up to $18,000 per person to a gubernatorial campaign, $9,000 for general, $9,000 to primary. Since neither is facing a primary, both will have to return any donations that exceed $9,000. Wow, that gets wonky and confusing, doesn't it? Oh, we got to take our last break. Get your last second comments in, and we will be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
The only thing more American Than apple pie and 4th of July is baseball. This year, WYDC is bringing you 25 New York Mets games free over the air this spring and summer. No fees and no subscription services. Just turn on WJKP 48.2 and grab a comfortable seat right at home to watch baseball history unfold. Make sure you don't miss a home run. And tune into WJKP 48.2 to watch the New York Mets this MLB season. Let's go Mets!
Hot tubs. With Easter coming, what better way to make every day better than with a Hesselson's hot tub? During these uncertain, stressful times, what better way to relieve tension and relax those achy muscles? During Easter week, free chemicals and free steps, and the new and innovative energy-efficient smart top and hydraulic lift systems are just half price. Plus, huge, unprecedented discounts on 2025 models as factory reps will be on hand. Hesselson's Easter week hot tub sale is going on now through Saturday at 5 p.m. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Hello there, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We get to enjoy some sunshine for our Thursday. South-southeast wind around 10 miles per hour, pushing us about 5 or so degrees on the warm side of average. Then we'll stay mild tonight with lows in upper 30s, south to mid-40s looking west. By Friday, highs are closer to the 70-degree mark, mid and upper 60s with some showery potential. Pretty dry over the weekend, briefly cooler, but warm at the start of next.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street. According to a comment from a viewer, Hochul should be concerned even if Tinkerbell was running against her. Thank you very much. Hochul waved at angry protesters yesterday. She was ambushed at the Javits Center by a throng of protesters yelling at her to tax the rich. The governor, who was there to announce yet another auto insurance affordability measure, smiled and waved. My friends follow me everywhere. What people may not realize, everything I'm doing is focused on trying to put money back in their pockets to make life more affordable in New York. And I'll be unrelenting in that quest. There's a really good piece by Chuck Flint, who said the numbers don't lie. The IRS's latest migration data shows that between 2022 and 2023, New York and California posted a combined net loss of 373,309 people, taking with them $23.5 billion in adjusted gross income that both states no longer collect taxes on, verified directly from the IRS's raw migration data. And so what this boils down to, this piece, this isn't theoretical. It's playing out in real time in real cities to real families. The people leaving aren't making a political statement. They're making an economic calculation, and the math isn't close. The progressive playbook of tax more, spend more, and control prices has never produced affordability. It has produced exactly what we're watching, an exodus. The IRS data is the verdict. The migration is the punishment. Soaring populist rhetoric makes for a great soundbite. It makes life more expensive for everyone else, though. That's why people are voting with their feet. All right, a couple comments. I'm wondering if Blakeman can do a GoFundMe. Well, Blakeman has a campaign. I mean, you can donate to his campaign. This was just to match the funds that taxpayers would pay. So if you want to donate to him, you don't have to go through GoFundMe. Just go to his website. But Hochul has a war chest of over $20 million, and his is not even close to that. I think she actually is $20 million over him. So the idea was this would just get him a little bit closer. So for every $1 million he raised, he would actually have $7 million in the bank, kind of idea. Comment from a different viewer. Thankfully, gas prices are giving the Democrats something to whine about. Their hopes for the Epstein files are as valid as Elizabeth Warren's American Indian heritage. It's another great Trump day in America. Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Vice President Vance needs to educate the Iranian people. We are not fooling around and will finish the job. Thank you very much. And a nice wave to add to that. We appreciate that. Well, that does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Oh, there are New York lawmakers that are challenging the electric school bus mandate. A group of central New York lawmakers pushing back on the state's electric school bus mandate, saying some districts may not be ready to meet the requirements. No, of course not. We talked about the cost of that. And luckily, tomorrow on the program, we have Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, and maybe we'll just ask him about that as well. So, yes, tomorrow, our guest, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. We want to thank Dawn Berlew from Watkins Glen International for being on the program this morning so you can find out everything you need to know about the upcoming It's hard to believe NASCAR race on Mother's Day weekend, but the actual race season kicks off tomorrow with a big party, and then Saturday you can take your vehicle out on the track. You heard all about it from Don Berlew, our good friend, on the program. So join us every weekday morning starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV Big Fox. We will see you tomorrow morning bright and early. Get your questions in ahead of time for 7-minute Phil Palmisano, because we've got a lot that we need to cover with the budget extension, Blakeman, energy, a lot to cover. So I need you to be a part of it and get those questions in ahead of time so I can add them to the list. And have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow morning bright and early. I look forward to it already.